Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of the Prospect Corner, episode 2 of season 2. And we are getting closer and closer to training camps. We got prospect tournaments happening this coming week. We got, next week we're going to be talking about hockey being actually played in prospect world, and talking about, we got Traverse City coming. We got the Young Stars tournament coming in BC here. We got a few of the Canadian teams participating in that. Peter, I believe Toronto participates in the Traverse City one, doesn't it?
They do, yes.
Yeah, so they play in that one. So we're going to have some great insight talking about those guys, about the teams we cover at the Hockey Writers. So that's going to be fun. But on this episode, we're going to start talking about our farm system rankings, which is an article that comes out every year, but it does get updated, I believe 2 times a year. So This is our new update with, of course, the added draft prospects that were added to the different farm systems. Some saw big jumps, some saw big drops. So Peter, again, thanks for putting that together. It's always a great read, and I'm sure it's really difficult to put those together every year, every half year, because they're really hard to debate around, and you always get some people getting kind of angry about where their teams get placed. But that's just how it is in prospect world of guys graduating, guys getting better, and all that stuff. So let's dive into these farm system rankings. But of course, before we do, our show is always brought to you by the Morning Skate newsletter here at the Hockey Writers. Great newsletter. It comes to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the off season. Of course, it'll jump to Monday to Friday. Kyle Knopp has a great team of writers that puts that together. So definitely check that out. Has everything, something for everyone. I mean, there's a lot of great content in that newsletter. You just get your coffee and take a read of that. So definitely check that out. There's a link in the description for you guys. Click on that, enter your email. You'll get that right in your inbox 3 days a week to start. And then once the regular season gets going, you're going to get that 5 days a week. So lots of stuff happening in the NHL when that comes out. Check that out. But let's get into that farm system rankings that we've talked about. Let's start on the bad side and start with the biggest faller in these rankings. Peter, we'll start with you. Who do you see as the biggest, or who did you see as the biggest faller? That you've already written it. So who do you see there?
Well, I think the easy answer is going to be the Colorado Avalanche, going from 9 to 31. Obviously, Bowen Byram making the NHL. Obviously, there was a little bit of, that time off where we thought maybe, is he going to come back? Wasn't he? He did. Ended up becoming a Stanley Cup champ. No Justin Barron because they traded him to the Montreal Canadiens. So there's a little bit of a hole there. And you look at the prospects that they have, Sean Barons, Jean-Luc Foudy, Martin Kaut, Oscar Olofsson, and Ivan Shigalov are the top 5 that I have. Obviously, they're going to be great, but they don't have that depth like they did before. And that's a result of them, going big, going all in to try and win a championship, and lo and behold, they won a championship. So for them to fall outside into the lower spectrum of the prospect pool, I think they can live with that for a few years before they need to start stockpiling up, because their window is to win right now.
Yeah.
But the main one is going to be, for me, the Vegas Golden Knights. And, similar to the Colorado Avalanche, where they traded away prospects to try and get big name players, and it totally backfired right now. This draft wasn't that great for them. They drafted Maciej Sapovalov, great two-way playmaking center with great speed, but obviously, they're now lacking substance. They're lacking depth. They don't have Nick Suzuki anymore. They don't have Peyton Krebs because they traded them all away. And, with the Nick Suzuki trade and Max Pacioretty, they traded Max Pacioretty and they barely got anything for him.
Yeah.
So that just proves that your prospect system still isn't that great. But, Brandon Breeson, energetic, great hands, great speed, great mobility. Same as Lucas Cormier. I really like him as an offensive defenseman, but not a whole lot of substance there. They got great sort of like middle depth pieces, but because they've been trading away all their prospects, all their picks, it's starting to come back and bite them.
They got to stop doing that.
They really do. Yeah.
They really do. They really do.
Unless you're winning a championship like the Colorado Avalanche, you really shouldn't be toying with that, because now you're going to be closer to a rebuild than anything.
Yeah. Very early on in their existence too. So rebuild, something they didn't do a very good job building in the first place. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Devin, who do you got as the biggest faller from this list?
Well, let me read the first line of this team's on the article. I'm going to paraphrase it just a little bit. Like the Golden Knights, the Florida Panthers took a chance to try and move prospects, and it didn't quite work out. I'm of course going to be talking about the Florida Panthers. They were not ranked super high the last time around. They were 19th. So that's a prospect pool that has some promise, but it's not as deep as, a lot of other teams that have them. They're now at 25. And when you're at 25, that means you have, one of the more shallow prospect pools in the NHL. And that is a big time byproduct of them moving out guys, moving up picks and prospects, specifically in this last season for Claude Giroux and then for Ben Sherratt. And they, what did they get out of that? What did they get out of those moves? They got a trip to the second round, and then they got swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Was it worth it? Probably not. But to make matters worse, they don't have a first round pick until 2026. Mm-hmm. So they not only have a shallow prospect pool, they also don't have the best need or the best means to replenish that pool. Now, obviously, they're a team that's expecting to be a perennial playoff team over the next few years. So those first round picks weren't going to be, lottery picks, but you need to add prospects, and they're moving out picks just like Vegas. They're very much, the onus is on this, the roster they have right now to be the team that brings them to Stanley Cup glory, because there's not going to be a lot of young reinforcements on the way, especially after the guys they do have graduate, if they graduate. Guys like Grigory Denisenko, Evan Naus, Matthew Smaskovich, Justin Sordief, Casper Puccio, they've got good guys. They've got guys who can definitely develop into NHL players. But what happens when those guys graduate? There's going to be nobody else there. And that's great, kind of to your point about Colorado, Peter. That's great if you are winning Stanley Cups, because nobody cares about your prospect pool if you're, collecting championships and raising Stanley Cup banners. But when you're not doing that and you don't have a pool that can replenish your talent, you are stuck in a very bad spot. So if you're the Florida Panthers, you have to be hoping that you've got longer and more fruitful playoff runs ahead, because there's not a whole lot of promise in the prospect pool as it stands now. And like I said, there's not a whole lot of picks to be had over the next, 4 years to really replenish it.
Yeah, the Florida Panthers, they went all in.
For sure.
They thought that they had a Stanley Cup championship team. And I mean, who could blame them? I mean, they were the best team in the NHL for almost the whole year. I mean, they had pieces that you would thought would have gone and done stuff, but Tampa Bay Lightning is not any other team that you can play against. They seem to do well in the playoffs. I mean, they've won back-to-back cups, almost won another one. So yeah, it's a team that you don't take lightly, and the Panthers, I think, took them too lightly. They didn't play well enough to win, and that's just how it was. So of course they got to rebuild their prospect pool, like you said, but 2026 is the next one they'll be able to get a first round pick. So they're going to have to hope some of these lesser guys, lesser round, diamond in the rough guys are going to start doing some stuff soon. I mean, they got Lundell, who's obviously a great young player. Yeah. So, and they got Matthew Tkachuk for crazy 7 years now. So hopefully he can pan out, but he's still really young. So they got a window. They still got a window they can
sure do.
In, but prospect wise, it's going to get scary. Going to get scary soon. I'm going with the team that was the former number one on this list, the LA Kings, who, they were number one, for 2 years in a row? I believe it was. Back to back. So they went
even in the midseason rankings, still number one.
They dropped quite a bit. And, they still a pretty strong prospect pool, but we've mentioned a few guys, Alex Turcotte being one, not as high up on a list. So they kind of dropped there. Lots of guys that are starting to graduate. So, I mean, they've got Quentin Byfield not on this list anymore, not on the top 100 anymore. So that kind of screws their stuff up. You've got high picks like some of their defensemen have graduated. So, I mean, when it starts happening, you're going to start having to see some progression. And they have looked like they've progressed. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, surprisingly, and put the Edmonton Oilers to the test. They brought them to, right to the edge. So, they have a good future, but they're going to have to start, again, that rebuild process of you don't want to start to have where you do make the playoffs, every year, and all of a sudden you drop in your prospects. You don't want that to happen, because then you're going to hit that dark days where you're going to have to rebuild it. So the best teams, they do it on the fly, and it's not easy to do. I mean, with those low picks that you get, but the Red Wings in it for many years, and the Lightning are doing it right now. Their late round picks are hitting, so it can be done. It's just very difficult to do, but that's the mark of a good team and a good development program and scouting staff and all that stuff. So we're gonna have to start seeing the Kings do that without high picks, and that's, again, the mark of a good scouting, because any scout can pick the Quentin Byfields of the world. Any scout can pick the guy like Connor Bedard. They, first overall. Well, you don't need a scout to say Connor Bedard's the best player in that draft. So the best scouts are the ones that find the ones in the low end, 5th, 6th round. And that's what the Kings are going to have to start doing. Okay, that's our farm system rankings, the biggest fallers. Let's go to the positive side and see teams that have gone up. Biggest risers. Devin, we'll start with you. Who is their biggest riser on this list that kind of increased their stock in their farm system?
Well, Peter talked about Vegas and how their prospect pool has gone south in a big way since they joined the league. So let's talk about the team that joined after them, the Seattle Kraken, who are taking the exact opposite approach to team building as the Vegas Golden Knights did. They were at 31 the last time this list was compiled. They are now all the way up to number 9, right ahead of the LA Kings. That should tell you right then and there, ahead of the LA Kings, how good their pool is, how good their pool just got, I should say. Yeah. And a lot of that has to be attributed to getting Shane Wright at 4th overall in the 2022 draft. Because like you said in that previous episode, Matt, I guarantee you nobody in Seattle expected to get Shane Wright, except for Sean Raggio. So I guess that's why the Hockey Writers has him, right? But it's not just Shane Wright, right? It's Matty Beniers, it's Jagger Firkus, it's Ty Nelson. This is a pool that now has impact players and blue chip prospects, more than just Matthew Beniers. I mean, Beniers is a great prospect. He's going to be a favorite for the Calder Trophy this coming season. And he was their first pick in franchise history. He was their prospect pool a year ago, basically. And now they have all these other guys. Credit to Ron Francis and his staff, for basically trading for half of the second round picks in the 2022 draft. That was a good get for them. And then also they made good on those picks, right? It's one thing to have picks, you got to do something with them. And also kudos to them for not overthinking 4th overall, because I'm sure they were thinking defense. And then Shane Wright was there at 4 and they had to make a pick. They did not overthink it. And I think they took the best player in the draft, and that I think they deserve to be commended for that. And just to kind of, tie it all together here, they, like I said, they have players that can potentially make an impact at all positions except for goalie, I would say. They've got a good defensive prospect. They got a couple of great center prospects, and they got a good winger prospect. They have guys that should be filtering into their lineup sooner rather than later. And they're building it in a sustainable way, which is fitting for that their brand. But yeah, they're building it the right way. They're building it slow and steady. They're not trying to win right away. They're not dealing prospects for Jack Eichel. They're not doing picks for Max Pacioretty and then trading for nothing. They're building it a long-term way, and I think that in 3 years we'll be looking at the Seattle Kraken and saying, "Dang, they've got a really good team, and it was built through the draft."
Yeah, we should call this episode the episode we roast the Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm down.
They deserve it. But it's totally different, like you said. The Kraken have been doing it the right way to rebuild, building their team. This is something that, everyone kind of criticized them for what they did at the expansion draft, not going after the big names like Carey Price, like Tarasenko, but there's a reason for it. They don't want to, tie up all their money within the next bunch of years, and they may have to sign Matty Beniers to a big contract. They may have to sign Shane Wright to a big contract, and they still have a guy like Tarasenko on your books for, I don't know if Tarasenko's the best, Carey Price is a better example because he has quite a few years on there. So, you don't want to hamstring your franchise right off the bat, which is what the Golden Knights have done with these big contracts they're trading for, with these big contracts that they're signing. They wouldn't have had the money to sign some of these big prospects, and they trade them away anyway. But yeah, so the Kraken are doing it so far the right way. I mean, they could do that. They could start trading these guys for quick fixes, but I don't see Ron Francis being that type of GM. So we'll see what the Kraken do in the future, but they definitely have a strong prospect pool right now. That's my pick right now too. So I'm not going to, that's my explanation. I don't have anyone else. So Peter, do you have someone different on a biggest riser from this list?
I do. And they were inside the top 10 at the start, outside the top 10 mid rankings. And now they're back inside the top 10. And from the team that should have probably taken Shane Wright first overall, or the team that did take, I already messed that up. The team that took Shane Wright fourth overall to the team that should have taken him first overall. There we go. Got it. The Montreal Canadiens. I mean, even before this draft, they were in a good spot because they already brought in Justin Barron and Tyson Milanic to fill out their depth. They already had Sean Farrell, who looked fantastic. Caden Gooley and Joshua Roy had a big season in the QMJHL, and I'm still very high on both Farrell and Roy as underrated names in the system. And I didn't even mention Jan Mysak as well. Sorry. But then you come to the 2022 draft. Juraj Slafkovsky, again, debatable whether he should have been first or not, but still great hands, great size, great mobility, just powers us through to the middle of the ice. Does a great job at doing that. Owen Beck, Philip Mazar, Lane Hudson, all three provide their own different skill set. Beck with the smart two-way, quick transitional game. Mazar a little bit feisty in the middle six role. And Lane Hudson, who I think was a very underrated name that probably should have been in the first round. And I think Matt and Devin, you agree as well, that maybe he should have been in that consideration. And for them to get them later on in the draft was a really great pickup. So they are in the mold where, they drafted, they're going to develop, they're not going to, waste these years. Obviously, it's still going to be a bit of a tough time with them trying to get back to the way they were before, try and get this rebuild intact, but they're definitely on the right path. And the fact that they're moved up to 7th overall again with this group of prospects, it's a really great sign if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan. So the fact that they're there, the players that they got, the potential that they have, they got to make you stay the course. Don't steer away from it because you got some really strong names that could build a really great foundation for the future.
Yeah, there again about a team that shouldn't, that's doing it the right way so far with rebuilding. They're not trading away prospects to try to fix it quickly. They have some really good prospects coming up, and Lane Hudson. Everyone knows how much I like that guy. I was happy he went to the Canadiens actually because it's a team that I don't dislike. So it's good thing Hudson's with a team that I think he's going to thrive on too, because like I said in the past, they've got some, they have some luck with smaller players too. They, Gallagher really good. They got Cole Caulfield really good. So it's like you got Lane Hudson in there. They seem to know how to develop those young, smaller prospects, and another steal in the second round. So great pickup by them. And of course, a deserved riser on that list as well. Okay, that was our farm system rankings. Definitely check that out if you're a fan of any of the teams that are on that 32. You're probably not going to be happy with some of where the teams went. I was a little happy the Canucks went up a bit because of Jonathan Karamaki, most likely. Going up, they actually got a first round pick this time, which is conducive to rising up because you have a good prospect, you're going to go a little higher. So Karamaki being there, of course, I was happy to see that. But definitely check that out for any of the teams, see where they ranked. And of course, let us know in the comments if you disagree or agree. Probably more if you disagree, because that's when you usually comment. No one says great job. Great job.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Come on. Give us some good, but we love the debate. So definitely give us a comment down there. We'll respond to you and give us our comments on your comment. Okay, let's get to a bit of a fun quick fire round here and talk about the teams that we cover at the Hockey Writers. Peter with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Devin with the Detroit Red Wings. Of course, they're both on shows that cover those teams, Grind Line, Maple Leafs Lounge, and I'm occasionally on both shows. I also am the producer of both. So let's talk about some teams that we cover extensively and we'll start with you, Devin, and the Detroit Red Wings. Prospect that needs to progress the most this season. Of course, there's so many prospects that, we see progression every year, but who needs to do it the most in 2022-23?
I'm tempted to say Sebastian Cossa here, just to kind of restore faith that he, is, worthy of the draft slot he was picked in. But I'm not going to say Cossa, but I am going to mention him clearly. I'm going to say Jared McIsaac is the prospect that needs to progress the most this season. And the biggest reason why is because the Red Wings have a ton, and I do mean a ton, of left-handed defensive prospects, and a lot of good ones at that. And we're talking about, in McIsaac, we're talking about a 2018 draft pick that is pre-Yzerman, that is before Yzerman joined the Red Wings as a general manager. So he's not as tied to, to other prospects. Yzerman's not as tied to McIsaac as he would be with the prospects that he picked, right? At least in theory. McIsaac, when he was, back in the 2018 draft, he was ranked in the first round by a few people. This was one of the higher end defensive prospects in that class, and it was kind of seen as a win to get him with the 36th pick in the second round of that draft. And it joined a draft class that had Philip Zadina, Joe Veleno, and Jonathan Berggren. That was, seemed like a haul at the time. And fast forward today, and a lot of it has to do with injuries. McIsaac just couldn't stay healthy for one reason or another. He had 2 separate shoulder injuries that he had to deal with. So he just wasn't able to be on the ice. And this past season in the AHL was his first full season since 2018, 2019. That's a long time to go without playing a full season. Obviously, the pandemic affected that a little bit too. But like I said, it's a long time to go without playing a full season of hockey. And for his, to his credit, he did not look out of place in the AHL last year, but you want to see him thrive now, especially as a 22 going on 23-year-old prospect that is a prospect pool that has a lot of guys competing for the same jobs that he's going to be competing for. If he's going to be a part of the Red Wings' future, he's got to have a really big 22-23 season. He's got to be one of, if not the best defenseman down in the AHL, and he's got to be knocking on the door of the NHL. And if he's not, like I said, there's a lot of guys who will be ready to knock him out of the depth chart. So Jared McIsaac is definitely the Red Wings prospect that needs to show up and really announce himself this year.
That's a good pick. I actually, honestly, I forgot about him. So
that's the problem.
That's the problem. And there's also a lot. Well, that also shows how much more the Red Wings have added in prospect wise that are better. And that's unfortunately, that's what happens with prospects. They get people being pushed down the depth chart as more come, and they just got to keep having a harder time to stand out. So we'll see what he does this season. Okay, Peter, let's shift to the Maple Leafs. And what prospect do you see as being a guy that needs to progress the most this season?
I think you got to look at Nick Robertson. I mean, hate to state the obvious, but you got to state the obvious right then and there. And he's been very productive in the AHL. 16 points in 21 games in his first season. And this season last season was 28 and 28. But he didn't miss 8 to 10 weeks because of a fractured fibula. But when he came back, he was still on a roll. So he's been productive at the AHL. When he gets to the NHL, obviously, he's been more in a third, fourth line role to start. Doesn't quite get the opportunities. But when he does get the opportunities to play in his top 6, you see what makes him great. The shot, the speed, the accuracy. It's just there's some aspects of his defensive game. There's some lapses there that are still glaring. And this is the season for him to try and package everything all together, make it known that he is supposed to be the top 6 guy that the Maple Leafs drafted in the second round back in 2019. But this is the year to do it because, one, that top left wing spot is available beside John Tavares and William Nylander. That has Nick Robertson's name all over it, but could an underrated name like Pontus Holberg, who could play both center and wing, move up? Can someone else up the depth chart like Pierre Engvall overtake and become a top 6 winger? A lot of factors in there that may factor into whether Nick Robertson could get into that top 6 role or make the roster. Second is Matthew Nice. He's also a left wing. He's, I think, the top prospect in the system right now. Robertson has fallen down the depth chart quite a bit because of also Topi Niemela and his defensive play. But you're starting to see other forwards starting to, make their name too. And I also really like the Fraser Minton pick, who can play, I believe, center and wing, play both positions. At some point, what's going to happen with him? Is he going to rise? Robertson going to fall? So now is the time for Nick Robertson to try and put everything that made him successful in the AHL and translate it to the NHL right now. I mean, he's 20 years old, still a lot of time, but he's been in the organization right now for about 3 seasons right now. It's time for him to try and step it up just a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because like you said, there's a lot of opportunity for him this year. So if he can't do it, even especially if he gets some time with those guys and he can't produce, there's something amiss. So we will see what happens with him in Toronto. Great pick there. For the Canucks, this is a guy I've written about a couple times, and I really want him to succeed. Is Jet Wu. He's, I had high hopes for him coming out of the WHL. I mean, like I say, he's still young. He's at, he's only I believe he's 20, 21. So, I mean, it's not like he's over the hill. I mean, he still has a lot of time. But as a defenseman in a system that needs defensemen to actually start, producing and start being an NHL guy, he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't done any NHL games yet. I got some heat for saying that he should. Obviously I'm saying he should get it if he deserves it. But I think what's good for his development is to see the NHL and actually see the speed, be able to play in a regular season game. I mean, I know he's played in the preseason, but that's not the same. Playing against full lineups, NHL goaltenders, all that stuff. Going against the top players night after night, he needs to start seeing that. And in the AHL, he's been okay. He played on the top pairing with Jack Rathbone, who's probably now the second. Well, not probably. He is the second best prospect on the Canucks right now. He looked really good, and then kind of fell off and was playing on the fourth line as a winger at the end of the season last year, which is not good for a prospect that's supposed to be playing a lot. He's got a new coach in the AHL this year, and Jeremy Colleton, was the Chicago Blackhawks head coach not that long ago. So we'll see how he kind of helps him out and see if he does play him more and play him in that top pair and gets him a lot of minutes. But Jet Wu needs to start progressing and start looking like an NHL defenseman sooner rather than later. Because he's definitely got the potential. He's got the size. He's got the physicality. He has the potential to actually be an offensive defenseman too. I actually said he could be a good partner for Quinn Hughes, and that's some high expectations. But I think he's got the potential to still do it. But he's got to start showing it now. And so I'm looking for Jet Wu to be an impact defenseman, at least in the AHL level, and actually gain some, looks in the NHL. And that's what he has to do to actually get some, the GM's, eyes, and to say, yes, we want him up here. And we'll see if that happens with Wu, because he has a great name, and we're going to start seeing some chants in Vancouver with his name, because I think it'll be really good for when he scores a goal, whenever he does score. But we'll see what happens with him. All right, let's move to the prospects to watch, the exciting guys that we want to see. We're really excited to see play this year, and there's always a few of them. So let's start with you, Peter, on this one. Who are you excited to see, either in the NHL, AHL, junior, wherever, coming into this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I'm obviously excited for Fraser Minton. Obviously, he's got the smarts, the physicality, the skill, that package that the Maple Leafs seem to have been lacking for some time. Obviously, heading in at the combine, when interviewing players, they showed them clips saying that, hey, this is what we want. We want you to decide what's going to happen after. They were looking for smarts, high IQ kind of players, and Minton fits that description. Obviously, he was on a deep team with the Kamloops Blazers. I think this year is going to be a big stepping stone for him, and he's going to thrive and succeed in a more prominent role. Granted that he had a very successful season last year. I think he's going to take a big step, but I'm interested to see their 5th round pick in Nikita Grebenkin. Overager, but there is a lot of skill with his repertoire. He was ranked 51st among European skaters, kind of an unknown in that regard, but going in, looking at all the clips and seeing him play, he is, and I'm going to quote Wes Clark with this because he said this as well, he is machine-like. This is a guy who has the work ethic, the strength, the power to just go in on the forecheck and just, give it his all. He's absolutely aggressive. He's driven in every single shift that he's done or that he's in, sorry. And looking at the stats of his season last year, he was 2nd in scoring in the MHL on his team, Stelia Magnitogorsk, sorry. And he was second with 64 points. I'm slipping all over the place. Sorry about that. And he was 1st in assists with 47, and he was on the same team that Danila Yurov was on, and he was drafted in the 1st round. Obviously, Grebenkin had more games. Yurov didn't because he was barely getting, 4 minutes a game in the KHL. But with his playmaking, his hands, his speed, his creativity, I think they got a really great overager player that's, took some time to develop, but he's finally packaged everything together. And kind of like Minton with some of that physicality, this guy isn't afraid to drop the gloves. And there was a clip early this season in the past week or so that he was able to get into to the nasty side of the game. I kind of like that because the Maple Leafs do need some of that sandpaper, but he has the skill, and I'm looking to see what he can do this season.
Yeah, those are two great picks. We, of course, keeping an eye on Prospect Corner as well to kind of talk about. So we'll see what happens with them. Okay, Devin, there's a lot of Detroit Red Wings prospects that, of course, we're going to be excited to see, of course. Who do you have as the most exciting guy that you want to see this season?
Well, I'm going to try to keep this brief because I just remembered it was supposed to be quick fire. So,
well, we really don't know
that. I kind of went overboard with that one. Whoops.
Dmitry Pachelnikov is my pick. He's a 2nd round pick from the 2022 draft. Is playing in the over in Russia right now. Kind of an unknown guy, or at least kind of a lesser known guy. But already he's really starting to make a name for himself over there in his home country. I expect that a lot of people are going to know the name Dmitry Pachelnikov by the end of this the 2022-23 season. And so yeah, if you want to be one of the first people to know his name, I would highly suggest watching him play.
Yeah, that wasn't the guy I thought you were going to mention, but there you go. That just, again, highlights the depth of the Detroit Red Wings prospect pool. So I'm going to go with a guy that I've mentioned a few times for the Canucks, and that is Linus Karlsson and Arshdeep Bains. These are 2 guys that I'm really excited to watch for the Canucks. Linus Karlsson's a guy I watched over in the SHL quite a bit. Last season, had a heck of a season. I know I was prospect of the week for a few times for me. Won or hit the record for rookie scoring, bypassed Elias Pettersson, who also plays for the Canucks in that. So we'll see what he does in the NHL. I'm really excited actually seeing the AHL to start, because I don't think he's making the team unless it's a real big surprise. But he's going to be a headliner in Abbotsford. Definitely another skilled Swede that the Canucks have. And he's got some potential as being a top 6 forward, and I'm hoping he can hit that, because the Canucks need some of these lesser prospects to start hitting because they only have really one premium blue chipper, and that's Lekaramaki. So we'll see if Carlson can kind of be that this season and actually show some potential in the AHL. And that goes the same thing with Arshdeep Bains, who won the scoring title in the WHL last season over Ager. And he's another exciting young player. And, you know, not a lot of people have expectations for overagers, but, you know, Peter, you mentioned one there too. And this Bains is a little bit more because he was signed as an undrafted free agent. But he's going to have a heck of a cheering section to start because he's from Surrey and he's going to be playing in Abbotsford. So really close. So he's going to have some family at his games most of the time, I'm sure. Going to have a good backing. So I'm hoping he has a really good season and maybe get some call-ups. I'm hoping not a lot because that means there's a lot of injuries, but I'm excited to see him in the NHL, hopefully in the NHL one day, but at least the AHL this year. Okay, let's start. I don't want to jinx. Let's not jinx anyone. I'm hoping we don't because we did that with Cole Caulfield last year with this question, but there's a lot of different players this time. Now, last year we had Cole Caulfield as pretty much the hands down favorite to win the Calder Trophy. And I don't have to tell you guys, we were wrong. But Caulfield did a great rest of the season. Once St. Louis took over, he had a heck of a season. If he would have done that all year, he may have gone over Moritz Seider. You never know, but Seider had a heck of a season, well-deserved of that trophy. But we're talking about this year, 2023 Calder Trophy. We're going to start with an early favorite. We're not going to go with our favorite right now because there's so many guys and we got to see where everyone falls and, guys making the team, guys not. Let's start with you, Peter. Who is your early Calder Trophy favorite and why that is?
Kind of wish the Maple Leafs had another, 26-year-old just to try and stir the pot a little bit, but they don't, and I don't think they are going to. I'm looking towards Matty Beniers for the Seattle Kraken. After the season that he had at the University of Michigan, he signs his ELC, comes over, and I believe he finished with 9 points in 10 games, just under a point per game. Seattle Kraken were way out of it, but Matty Beniers was on point and was showing every little bit to the Kraken fan base and management and coaching staff that he definitely is, why they drafted him second overall. That high skill game, the two-way vision and the two-way vision, the intensity and the work ethic that he comes to play with every single time. It's always on point. It's always on display and it's always phenomenal. So if I were to pick one player right now, it would probably be Beniers.
That's a good pick. I'm going to pick someone different. I'm going with Mason McTavish, Anaheim Ducks. Of course, everyone knows Anaheim Ducks prospect. Made that game-saving save in overtime for the World Juniors. He's always going to be known for that. Doesn't matter what he does in the NHL and anywhere else.
Going to be a good goalie.
He's always going to be in the history books. So, but I don't think we're going to be talking about being a bust in the NHL. He's going to be a heck of a player. Probably going to take up. I don't want to put too much expectation in this guy, but he has the same game as Ryan Getzlaf. So I think he's going to be maybe not. I don't want to say as good because that's kind of a really big shoes to fill in Anaheim, but he's going to be really good. Got the size. He's got the speed. He's got the shot, the passion, the leadership. Everything you want in an NHL player, he's got it. I think he's going to be a big name we're going to be talking about in the Calder Trophy race. He's going to be probably going to be playing, I don't know, he may play second line center and the Ducks, so he's going to get time on the power play. He's going to get a lot. He's already shown he can score in the NHL. He had a couple goals last year. So I'm going with Mason McTavish as my early favorite. Devin, who do you got as an early favorite for the Calder Trophy? Maybe we're going to make it 3 different picks this time. No unanimous decision.
Quick and simple. Beniers. Same
right,
reasons as Peter.
We're going to have it 2 there. You go. Hopefully you didn't jinx that we have 2 of them.
If we do, sorry, Matty Beniers.
I would like to throw
advance.
that in. I think Beniers too, but wanted to pick someone else. I would think Beniers would have a big chance because he's going to be playing. What you want to say? He's going to be top line center on Kraken.
I think he's going to be top line center. Yeah. He looked good already. Even if he wasn't in that top line role in that little stretch towards the end of the season, he's definitely going to make a case this time around.
Yeah, so he's going to have a big role in the Kraken, probably more than any other prospect on this, on our time, any of our picks. So he's going to have the chance to do it. So we'll see what Beniers can do. Reddy showed quite a bit in the NHL last season to the end of the season. So there's some precedent. So we will see. That wraps up our main part of the show, but we're going to revisit or resurrect. We haven't done our prospect of the week in a long time. So of course we got to do it on our second episode of the year. Prospect of the week. Devin, who do you got? There is some action in the prospect world, some preseason stuff, a Four Nations Cup that just wrapped. A lot of other stuff that's been a little bit happening, but who do you want to highlight as your prospect of the week for the first one of season 2?
Well, I had the privilege and all of that good stuff of putting out my first early rankings for the 2023 draft a week or two ago. Yeah. And a player that I'm already starting to get the inkling is going to be one of my favorites in this class is Brayden Yager. I have him ranked 4th in the class, and I guarantee you're going to be talking about him a lot between now and next year's draft. He was a real standout at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, 5 goals, 5 games, 9 points. Solid little stat line there for the guy. Mm-hmm. And he's a player that he's just exciting to watch. He was the rookie of the year in the WHL this past season. Shoots the puck, goes to dangerous areas. He does all the things that you want to see from a high octane offensive forward. Plays center. Obviously, that's one of the most important positions. And I think that he just plays an intelligent game. Like he's a draft eligible player this year, and or this season, I guess is the right way to put it. And he already plays a pretty mature game for a 17-year-old. I think that he's going to be a player that is going to play some big time minutes once he, hits his prime in his, mid 20s. So just kind of throwing that out there just to kind of get the 2023 draft cycle off and running. Brayden Yager. Obviously, this is the draft of Connor Bedard, but it's not just him. There's plenty of other guys, and Brayden Yager is one of them.
That's an understatement. I'd say understatement of the year for this draft. There's a lot of talent in this one. And Peter, you put yours out. Devin, you've got yours. Andrew's got his out. So 3 rankings. I may not have to do them this year, but I love doing them. So you're going to have 4. So more fun. We got 4 rankings coming out this year. And once it gets all going, because I usually don't do the early ones. So my first one will come out a little later on, but that'll be a full out thing. But we're gonna have, this draft deserves more rankings, so we're gonna have 4. So that's gonna be awesome. We'll get to start going over yours then, Devin. You're gonna get the fun time. So we don't usually skewer each other, but
we're gonna have to change that up soon.
I was gonna say, what are you setting me up here?
We usually agree with each other. That's not fun. But if we agree, we agree. All right, let's get to you, Peter. Who do you have as a prospect of the week for the first one of this season?
We agree to agree. So that's going to be our new slogan.
Agree to agree.
Going from one 2023 draft eligible player to another, I'm going with Leo Carlson. He plays in Aribo HK of the SHL. Last season, he's a later birthday, December, but he started the season off as a 16-year-old, turned 17. But when you're a 16-year-old and you're already finding yourself in the SHL, the top pro level in Sweden, chances are you're doing something right. And you got a high ceiling, a lot of potential going for you. And despite the fact that he only registered 9 points in 35 games, sheltered minutes because, down the depth chart, still decent production for what it's at. And at the Four Nations Cup, I believe Carlson finished with 6 points in that tournament. And obviously his draft year is already off to a great start. He possesses a really highly skilled and refined two-way game. Excellent speed, great stride to just break away from defenders, and excellent shots, great smarts and awareness on the ice. I really think he has, obviously, Connor Bedard has the best IQ and the best shot in this draft class and basically best everything because generational talent. But I think Leo Carlsson is up there as one of the smartest players in this draft because he's always coming with what he does, the hands, the patience, he's got it all. And I have him 7th as my early 2023 rankings that came out at the end of July before the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Sadly, he didn't partake in that tournament, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to be a top 5 player this year. So expect to hear a lot of Leo Carlsson from me this time around.
Yeah, well, that again, there's another one. One of many. I'm gonna say a whole first round of them we're gonna be talking about.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
2. So that's gonna be a fun. Like I say, that it's gonna be fun to cover this draft this year. So looking forward to all that. And I didn't follow the trend. I could have picked one too, but I'm gonna pick a guy that I'm really excited actually about to start watching. This is Elias Pettersson, the defenseman. I'm not cheating and picking a guy that's already an NHL player. This is the Elias Pettersson that the Canucks drafted last draft in 2022. Same spelling, same name as the Elias Pettersson that's already on the team and is an established NHL player. But this guy, he's got off to a good start this year. He played in the Four Nations Cup, 2 goals and an assist, helped his team to a gold medal in that competition. So he's showing some offense that I didn't think he would have. So I'll see if that continues as he goes into this year as the season goes. But Pettersson, not obviously going to be as good as the Elias Pettersson. That's the forward that scores 30 goals a season. But I think he's still going to end up being a really good defenseman in the NHL. And again, very early on, but a very good offensive production from a guy that I thought was more going to be a defensive guy. So I think he's going to end up being a really good prospect in the NHL at one point. But of course, early on. But I'm going to highlight him as a prospect of the week, maybe first of many, I'm hoping, to be mentioning him. But good guy, right-hand defense for, not right, he's a left, but left-hand defense. The Canucks need defensemen all around. So if he can end up being a good prospect defensively, I think he's going to be good. So I'm picking Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, as my pick. Okay, well, that wraps up another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Devin, for joining in. It's episode 2 of season 2 of this season. So we're going to end up being, again, talking about everything from the draft to World Juniors to anything that happens in the prospect world we'll be talking about. And, obviously check out the Morning Skate newsletter as, at the Hockey Writers. Great newsletter that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right now. But it will turn to that daily Monday to Friday version as well. So check out the description check out the link in the description below and sign up. And of course, check out all of our content at thehockeywriters.com. Lots of stuff coming out preseason. Of course, we have early rankings already. So lots of stuff coming out. And from Peter, Devin, we will see you next time on the Prospect Corner.